My sixth brother, O commander of the faithful, Shakashik, or many clamors, the shorn of both lips, was once rich and became poor, so one day he went out to beg somewhat to keep life in him. As he was on the road he suddenly caught sight of a large and handsome mansion, with a detached building wide and lofty at the entrance, where sat sundry eunuchs bidding and forbidding. My brother inquired of one of those idling there and he replied, "The palace belongs to a scion of the Barmaki house," so he stepped up to the doorkeepers and asked an alms of them. "Enter," said they, "by the great gate and thou shalt get what thou seekest from the wazir our master." Accordingly he went in and, passing through the outer entrance, walked on a while and presently came to a mansion of the utmost beauty and elegance, paved with marble, hung with curtains and having in the midst of it a flower garden whose like he had never seen. My brother stood a while as one bewildered, not knowing whither to turn his steps, then, seeing the farther end of the sitting chamber tenanted, he walked up to it and there found a man of handsome presence and comely beard. When this personage saw my brother he stood up to him and welcomed him and asked him of his case, whereto he replied that he was in want and needed charity. Hearing these words the grandee showed great concern and, putting his hand to his fine robe, rent it, exclaiming, "What! Am I in a city, and thou here and hungered? I have not patience to bear such disgrace." Then he promised him all manner of good cheer and said, "There is no help but that thou stay with me and eat of my salt." "O my lord," answered my brother, "I can wait no longer, for I am indeed dying of hunger." So he cried, "Ho boy! Bring basin and ewer," and, turning to my brother, said, "O my guest, come forward and wash thy hands." My brother rose to do so but he saw neither ewer nor basin, yet his host kept washing his hands with invisible soap in imperceptible water and cried, "Bring the table." But my brother again saw nothing. Then said the host, "Honor me by eating of this meat and be not ashamed." And he kept moving his hand to and fro as if he ate and saying to my brother, "I wonder to see thee eating thus sparely, do not stint thyself for I am sure thou art famished." So my brother began to make as though he were eating whilst his host kept saying to him, "Fall to, and note especially the excellence of this bread and its whiteness." But still my brother saw nothing. Then said he to himself, "This man is fond of poking fun at people," and replied, "O my lord, in all my days I never knew aught more winsome than its whiteness or sweeter than its savor." The Barmecide said, "This bread was baked by a handmaid of mine whom I bought for 500 dinars. Then he called out, "Ho boy, bring in the meat pudding for our first dish, and let there be plenty of fat in it," and, turning to my brother said, "O my guest, Allah upon thee, hast ever seen anything better than this meat pudding? Now by my life, eat and be not abashed." Presently he cried out again, "Ho boy, serve up the marinated stew with the fatted sandgrouse in it," and he said to my brother, "Up and eat, O my guest, for truly thou art hungry and needest food." So my brother began wagging his jaws and made as if champing and chewing, whilst the host continued calling for one dish after another and yet produced nothing save orders to eat. Presently he cried out, "Ho boy, bring us the chicken stuffed with pistachio nuts," and said to my brother, "By thy life, O my guest, I have fattened these chickens upon pistachios, eat, for thou hast never eaten their like." "O my lord," replied my brother, "they are indeed first rate." Then the host began motioning with his hand as though he were giving my brother a mouthful, and ceased not to enumerate and expatiate upon the various dishes to the hungry man whose hunger waxed still more violent, so that his soul lusted after a bit of bread, even a barley scone. Quoth the Barmecide, "Didst thou ever taste anything more delicious than the seasoning of these dishes?" And quoth my brother, "Never, O my lord." "Eat heartily and be not ashamed," said the host, and the guest, "I have eaten my fill of meat." So the entertainer cried, "Take away and bring in the sweets," and turning to my brother said, "Eat of this almond conserve for it is prime and of these honey fritters, take this one, by my life, the syrup runs out of it." "May I never be bereaved of thee, O my lord," replied the hungry one and began to ask him about the abundance of musk in the fritters. "Such is my custom," he answered, "they put me a dinar weight of musk in every honey fritter and half that quantity of ambergris." All this time my brother kept wagging head and jaws till the master cried, "Enough of this. Bring us the dessert." Then said he to him, eat of these almonds and walnuts and raisins, and of this and that, naming divers kinds of dried fruits, and be not abashed. But my brother replied, O my lord, indeed I am full, I can eat no more. O my guest, repeated the host, if thou have a mind to these good things eat, Allah. Allah? Do not remain hungry, but my brother rejoined, O my lord, he who hath eaten of all these dishes how can he be hungry? Then he considered and said to himself, I will do that shall make him repent of these pranks. Presently the entertainer called out, Bring me the wine, and, moving his hands in the air, as though they had set it before them, he gave my brother a cup and said, Take this cup and, if it please thee, let me know. O my lord, he replied, It is notable good as to nose, but I am wont to drink wine some 20 years old. Knock then at this door, quoth the host, for thou canst not drink of aught better. By thy kindness, said my brother, motioning with his hand as though he were drinking. Health and joy to thee, exclaimed the housemaster, and feigned to fill a cup and drink it off. Then he handed another to my brother, who quaffed it and made as if he were drunken. Presently he took the host unawares, and, raising his arm till the white of his armpit appeared, dealt him such a cuff on the nape of his neck that the palace echoed to it. Then he came down upon him with a second cuff, and the entertainer cried aloud, What is this, O thou scum of the earth? O my lord, replied my brother, thou hast shown much kindness to thy slave, and admitted him into thine abode and given him to eat of thy victual, then thou madest him drink of thine old wine till he became drunken and boisterous, but thou art too noble not to bear with his ignorance and pardon his offense. When the Barmaki heard my brother's words, he laughed his loudest and said, Long have I been wont to make mock of men and play the madcap among my intimates, but never yet have I come across a single one who had the patience and the wit to enter into all my humours save thyself, so I forgive thee, and thou shalt be my boon companion in very sooth and never leave me. Then he ordered the servants to lay the table in earnest, and they set on all the dishes of which he had spoken in sport, and he and my brother ate till they were satisfied, after which they removed to the drinking chamber, where they found damsels like moons who sang all manner songs and played on all manner instruments. There they remained drinking till their wine got the better of them, and the host treated my brother like a familiar friend, so that he became as it were his brother, and bestowed on him a robe of honor and loved him with exceeding love. Next morning the two fell again to feasting and carousing, and ceased not to lead this life for a term of 20 years, at the end of which the Barmecide died, and the Sultan took possession of all his wealth and squeezed my brother of his savings, till he was left a pauper without a penny to handle. So he quitted the city and fled forth following his face, but, when he was halfway between two towns, the wild Arabs fell on him and bound him and carried him to their camp, where his captor proceeded to torture him, saying, Buy thy life of me with thy money, else I will slay thee. My brother began to weep and replied, By Allah, I have nothing, neither gold nor silver, but I am thy prisoner, so do with me what thou wilt. Then the Badawi drew a knife, broad-bladed and so sharp-grinded that if plunged into a camel's throat it would sever it clean across from one jugular to the other, and cut off my brother's lips, and waxed more instant in requiring money. Now this Badawi had a fair wife who in her husband's absence used to make advances to my brother and offer him her favors, but he held off from her. One day she began to tempt him as usual, and he played with her and made her sit on his lap, when behold, in came the Badawi, who, seeing this, cried out, Woe to thee, O accursed villain, wouldest thou debauch my wife for me? Then he took out a knife and cut off my brother's yard, after which he bound him on the back of a camel and, carrying him to a mountain, left him there. He was at last found by some who recognized him and gave him meat and drink and acquainted me with his condition, whereupon I went forth to him and brought him back to Baghdad, where I made him an allowance sufficient to live on. This, then, O Commander of the Faithful, is the history of my 6 brothers, and I feared to go away without relating it all to thee and leave thee in the error of judging me to be like them. And now thou knowest that I have 6 brothers upon my hands, and, being more upright than they, I support the whole family. When the Caliph heard my story and all I told him concerning my brothers, he laughed and said, Thou sayest sooth, O silent man! Thou art indeed spare of speech, nor is there aught of forwardness in thee. But now go forth out of this city and settle in some other. And he banished me under edict. I left Baghdad and traveled in foreign parts till I heard of his death and the accession of another to the caliphate. Then I returned to Baghdad, where I found all my brothers dead, and chanced upon this young man, to whom I rendered the kindliest service, for without me he had surely been killed. Indeed he slanders me and accuses me of a fault which is not in my nature, and what he reports concerning impudence and meddling and forwardness is idle and false, for verily on his account I left Baghdad and travelled about full many a country till I came to this city and met him here in your company. And was not this, O worthy assemblage, of the generosity of my nature?